Michelle Lamy.
Some call her a witch with dark energy, and others claim she is an angel and most brightest soul. Who is Michelle Lamy? Michelle Lamy is a French cultural and fashion icon known for her eclectic career and distinctive style. Born in Jura, France in 1944, she has been a clothing designer, performer, film producer, and restaurateur. Lamy is the co-founding partner of Owenscorp and serves as the executive manager of art and furniture. She is married to fashion designer Rick Owens and is often described as his muse and creative collaborator. Lamy's career has spanned various fields, including law, cabaret dancing, and running cult restaurants in Los Angeles. She is also known for her unique personal style, characterized by tattooed fingers, gold-plated teeth, and a gothic aesthetic. She has an eclectic and unconventional approach to spirituality and beliefs. As she stated, belief is a way to express a memory of your genes. Lamy looks at the occult as part of humanity. She has a collection of voodoo masks and anthropological artifacts that she finds alluring. She's been described using terms like dark priestess, witch, gypsy, and sorceress. At the same time, she insists that people should express who they are, rather than explain. So by embracing certain style and her belief, people show who they are. When we adapt this rule to herself and the fact that she is interested in a cult, we get the bigger picture.
Michelle Lamy. Michelle Lamy's practices weave together elements like tarot card readings, eerie rituals, and the use of symbolic objects imbued with mystical power like human skulls and voodoo masks. She delves into the realms of intuition, symbols, and the enigmatic energies that permeate the universe. Drawn by her fascination with the arcane and the transformative power of rituals, Lamy embarked on a shadowy journey into ancient practices that unlock personal power and manifest intentions. Her approach to spirituality is a dark tapestry of various mystical and occult traditions, blended with her artistic vision. Lamy's spiritual practices bleed into her art, often infusing her work with ritualistic and haunting elements.
The black coal line on Michelle Lamy's forehead is a significant part of her unique and iconic appearance. This line, made of black vegetable dye, is applied daily and complements her overall aesthetic, which includes black stained fingers and gold-plated teeth. The coal line is often associated with the third eye, a locus of occult power and wisdom. Lamy herself cultivates an aura of mystery and has a strong interest in the occult. Growing up in rural France, Lamy felt different due to her family's dark skin and long hair, which led her to experiment with her appearance from a young age. She has Algerian family background and early exposure to fashion through her grandfather, who made accessories for designer Paul Poiret. She traveled to North Africa at age 17, where she fell in love with the Mazai Berber culture and was inspired by their practice of tattooing faces. This influenced her distinctive look, including her black stained fingers.
Tattoo on my fingers, they are a version of what could be some Berber artwork. So I always look at it. I would never have a tattoo like somewhere I cannot look at. It's a combination of a lot of rings from France. The main thing is they have to go with the tattoo. I'm always wearing them. Yes, some days the combination is right. Some days a working process. I'm doing this with a crayon, but I'm getting up and it's the first thing I do. My head does not function without this.
Lamy studied law in Paris and worked as a defense lawyer for about 5 years. During her law studies, she took classes with philosopher Gilles Deleuze, which influenced her approach to life experiences and learning. After leaving law due to philosophical disagreements with the French legal system, she became a cabaret dancer. Lamy has worked with various artists, including Marina Abramovich, A$AP Rocky, and Kim Kardashian. Rick Owens is a fashion designer known for his avant-garde and controversial style. His line DRKSHDW reflects his dark aesthetic. His designs explore themes of the macabre and often look like they could have come from an asylum's creative workshop. Owens is often referred to as the Lord of Darkness due to his exploration of dark and gothic themes in fashion.
You know Rick Owens? Yeah. Apparently he's he calls himself the Lord of Demons, innit?
He also makes sculptures of himself, one of which is located at the Selfridges. Here is his wax figure turned into a table. And a chair. And few more sculptures, including a merman. Some of his designs in shows have featured nudity or explicit materials. Owens challenges mainstream ideals of beauty and fashion, embracing what he calls anti-beauty that is still celebrated as beautiful. Owens identifies as bisexual. Before his relationship with Lamy, he had a boyfriend named Rick Castro, who ironically introduced him to Lamy. They met in LA and they worked together on various projects.
So way back in 1978, there was an incredible clothing shop in West Hollywood called Too Soon to Know, and the proprietor was Michelle Lamy. She had just moved from Paris to Los Angeles, and she had a lot of imported designers from Paris. She asked me to design her menswear line called LeMay Men. So I brought in my boyfriend at the time, who was Rick Owens, and I asked him if he would be my pattern maker. Continued to work with Rick and Michelle as an art director and photographing Rick's collection and doing portraits of Michelle Lamy and doing menswear lookbooks for Rick Owens and a lot of his early fashion shows in Paris.
They worked on Lamy's restaurant. Their partnership has since grown into both a personal and professional collaboration. By the time Lamy's restaurant Les Deux Café had started, they were already living together. Michelle Lamy has a daughter, Scarlett Rouge, with filmmaker Richard Newton, whom she was with right before Rick Owen. Right now, Owen and Lamy are considered the most influential couple in the fashion industry. Together they work with so many brands that you are familiar with. Like Birkenstock, they created a limited collection of sandals and legwear styles. Dr. Martens, Owens collaborated on footwear designs. Converse, another footwear collaboration. Adidas, a successful partnership that lasted for several seasons, focusing on footwear designs. Moncler, Owens designed capsule collections for the brand. Champion, an American activewear brand collaboration. And Veja, a French sneaker brand collaboration that lasted for 5 seasons. Lamy set up her own boxing gym, Lamaland in Selfridges, London, and held an installation Art Genius U in collaboration with Dutch photographer Paul Kuyk. These collaborations have helped expand the reach of Rick Owens' brand and made it more accessible to a wider audience, while also infusing their dark and unique elements into everyday wear.
Imagine being part of one of the most famous families in music history, where jealousy, betrayal, and scandal lurked behind the glittering spotlight. We're talking about the Jacksons. Of all the Jacksons, none was as tormented by Michael's meteoric rise as his older brother, Jermaine. Jermaine would often vent, shaking his head with frustration. "That was supposed to be me," he'd say when watching his brother Michael receive awards and acclaim. In 1991, Jermaine released Word to the Bad.
Word to the Bad, which seemingly slams his famous sibling.
Radio stations are playing it every hour, back to back with Michael's new single, Black and White.
A scathing track that accused Michael of altering his appearance and lying about his troubles with vitiligo. The two didn't speak for years. Jermaine's frustrations weren't just professional, they were deeply personal. Randy Jackson, Jermaine's younger brother, met Alejandra Owaziaza when she was just 17. They fell for each other, had 2 children together, but never married. Randy's immaturity left Alejandra questioning their future, and while Randy was away, Jermaine swooped in. Alejandra saw something different in Jermaine. He seemed more family-oriented. By 1995, they'd secretly married, and soon after, had children of their own. Randy was furious. Joe Blow down the street is one thing, but my brother in the same house? He fumed. Their mother, Catherine, was equally unimpressed, treating Alejandra like little more than hired help. The fallout was dramatic. Randy withheld child support, Jermaine couldn't understand why, and their relationship became so strained that they refused to speak. By 1997, even the family's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame became a source of dread for Jermaine. He confided to his brothers Jackie and Tito, "I just don't want to do anything with Randy." Jermaine's personal life grew even messier. By the late 90s, he had converted to Islam and entered into a controversial marriage with Lawanda, a friend of his niece. While still legally married to Alejandra, Jermaine had a ceremony at a local mosque, telling Lawanda it was just to make her happy. Alejandra, meanwhile, had no idea her husband was already moving on. After divorcing Alejandra in 2004, Jermaine married Halima Rashid, a woman from a wealthy Middle Eastern family. But even then, Lawanda refused to step aside, often complaining to the family that she was still being treated as a second-class wife. By 2001, Jermaine found himself financially strapped. Desperate, he began working on a tell-all book about Michael, spilling details about drug use and controversial relationships. His then-girlfriend, Lawanda, pushed him to demand a $1 million advance for the explosive revelations. Yet Jermaine would later become Michael's most vocal defender, dismissing scandals and rumors wherever he could. He even warned Michael of the family's attempts at interventions. Still, Michael kept him at arm's length, avoiding any serious discussion about reunion concerts or support. Through it all, Jermaine's life seemed like a constant tug of war between loyalty to his family and his own ambitions, between public adoration and private chaos. And while the world idolized the Jackson name, behind the scenes, the family was splintered by envy, betrayal, and unresolved rivalries.
For older millennials, Kidada was one of Tupac's last girlfriends. Born on March 22, 1974, Kidada Jones is Quincy Jones's daughter with Peggy Lipton and sister to actress Rashida Jones. Despite a privileged upbringing in Bel Air, Kidada faced challenges as a biracial child, feeling rejected by whites, particularly her mother's Jewish family. This sense of rejection resonates with actress Lisa Bonet's experiences, who shares a similar background. Kidada, knowledgeable in business and surrounded by influential men like Leonardo DiCaprio, was engaged to LL Cool J from 1992 to 1994. Their relationship ended due to differences in spiritual beliefs, with LL Cool J citing Kidada's involvement in practices like witchcraft and consulting gurus. He recounted incidents where Kidada engaged in rituals without his consent, impacting his career negatively. In his book, I Make My Own Rules, LL said, she would go to an ashram, consult a guru, and pray to statues. Before my album 14 Shots to the Dome dropped, Kidada told me she threw some kind of stick into the eternal fire for my album. I was like, yo, why did you do that? I didn't ask you to do that. That joint flopped crazily. Oh, well, I'm sorry I cared, she said. I had hurt her feelings, but she had hurt me too. I know she meant well, but I just couldn't get with that. She took me to her guru once, and I remember kneeling before this strange young woman who was touching feathers. She seemed to exert control over LL Cool J's career and mindset, possibly indicating early exposure to mind control techniques common in Hollywood elites. This influence extended to her relationships with Aaliyah and Tupac, where she played a significant role in their lives, albeit with different dynamics. Was Kidada a handler for Aaliyah? In one interview, Kidada declared that Aaliyah was younger than her, it is true, and that her mother, Diane, allowed her to be Aaliyah's guardian. One would think that Kidada was encouraging Aaliyah for inner growth, self-awareness, inner support, but no, the things which brought them together were the following. When it comes to her relationship to Aaliyah, she declared, as soon as we met, we just started talking, and that was it. We were like 4 or 5 years apart. We were into fashion, music, boys, pop culture. Aaliyah has been forgotten today by the younger generation, yet She was the becoming a rising star who was crushed at a time when her career was about to explode internationally. Before she passed away, still extremely close to Kidada, she mentioned her interest in the occult, a probable influence of Kidada herself who dabbled in magic, the occult and the dark side. Tupac and Kidada embodied the most problematic connection ever. Tupac was a threat to many. He was under FBI surveillance due to his mother's activities in the Black Panthers, was a truth speaker and activist for the Black American group throughout his life, and he exposed the hypocrisy of some of his rap mates in the industry. The rapper also denounced the sexual rituals performed by some of the most powerful hip-hop artists at the time. If no one knows if this was Tupac's voice or not, it is now impossible to find these audios again as they were taken away from the internet. Kidada's spiritual journey evolved over time, as evidenced by her School of Awake program, which blends astrology and occultism under the guise of personal elevation. This transition reflects her continued influence, particularly on vulnerable young girls, through her occult-linked structures.
Aaliyah, born on January 16, 1979, was a multifaceted artist whose talents as a singer, dancer, and model were rapidly propelling her to stardom. Her journey to becoming a cultural icon was marred by controversy and tragedy. Aaliyah was undoubtedly a beautiful young woman, but her youth and beauty seemed to attract men, many years her senior. It could be argued that her family left her to fend for herself against the predators of the industry. At the tender age of 12, Aaliyah was introduced to R. Kelly, who took her under his wing as a protege.
Let's clear something up, because you know I've been getting a rundown on the street. Everybody seems to think that y'all are either girlfriend or boyfriend, or cousins, or friends. Let's just get the record straight.
Okay, go get me a white Jeep.
Well, no, we're not related at all. No, we're not. We're just very close. He's my best friend.
By the time she was 15, their relationship had taken a dark turn, culminating in a secret marriage to the 26-year-old singer. Kelly, with the aid of his tour manager, Demetrius Smith, forged documents to list her age as 18. This illegal union was annulled within months when the forgery was exposed, but the emotional toll on Aaliyah was profound. Close friends, including Damon Dash, later asserted that the ordeal left her deeply traumatized, unable to speak of the experience. Over the years, numerous allegations of sexual misconduct against Kelly have surfaced, including claims of him abusing minors. Among these disturbing stories, one theory persists, that Kelly may have played a role in Aaliyah's untimely death. Smith, in his 2011 book, The Man Behind the Man, Looking from the Inside Out, alleged that Kelly suspected Aaliyah was pregnant. This rumor was further fueled by the documentary, Surviving R. Kelly, where former backup singer Jovante Cunningham claimed to have witnessed Kelly and Aaliyah in a compromising situation. It's also alleged that Kelly arranged the marriage so she could legally have an abortion. In a poignant interview with German newspaper Die Zeit, Aaliyah had described a recurring dream where she felt pursued but ultimately liberated as she floated away, feeling free and untouchable. These words took on an eerie significance following her death. Aaliyah's personal life was equally complex. Damon Dash recounted how Aaliyah was pursued by many, including Jay-Z, but ultimately chose him. Despite rumors and professional rivalries, Dash maintained that Aaliyah and Jay-Z were not seriously dating, emphasizing her kind and open nature. This claim has been refuted by members of his camp who suggest Jay-Z was in a serious relationship with Aaliyah. Timbaland, another close collaborator of both Aaliyah and Jay-Z, confessed in 2011 to having fallen in love with Aaliyah when she was just 16 and he was 23.
I was in love with her. I said, but I'm not, she's just a baby, I'm old. I said to myself, I'm just gonna be her brother. Oh man, I was fighting a big war.
His revelation, and the admission that he married his ex-wife partly because she resembled Aaliyah, stirred controversy and discomfort among fans. Aaliyah's rising fame and the potential threat of her exposing her past with Kelly led to rampant speculation. Some believed that her tragic death in a plane crash on August 25, 2001, was no accident but a calculated move to silence her. However, these theories were countered by many, including Aaliyah's mother, Diane Hoden, who dismissed the allegations and defended her daughter's memory. In a poignant interview with German newspaper Die Zeit, Aaliyah had described a recurring dream where she felt pursued but ultimately liberated as she floated away, feeling free and untouchable. These words took on an eerie significance. In August 2001, Aaliyah had completed a video shoot in the Bahamas for her single, Rock the Boat. The Cessna 402B carrying her and her entourage crashed shortly after takeoff, killing everyone on board. Investigations revealed that the plane was overloaded by 805 pounds and the pilot, Luis Morales, was not authorized to fly the aircraft. Morales had also been charged with crack cocaine possession shortly before the flight. Traces of cocaine and alcohol were found within his system upon completion of an autopsy, up until the R. Kelly trial, which saw him receive 30 years. Aaliyah's catalog was nowhere to be seen on streaming sites. Aaliyah's uncle, Barry Hankerson, who also was her manager and label owner, owns the rights to Aaliyah's music.
Barry, when Aaliyah died for a wrongful death, he got paid $90 million for her death. Am I supposed to say that on TV?
And recently decided to add her first album to streaming sites, prompting a scathing attack from Aaliyah's estate. For 20 years we have battled behind the scenes, enduring shadowy tactics of deception, the estate's statement reads. Now, this unscrupulous endeavor to release Aaliyah's music without transparency or full accounting to the estate compels our hearts to express a word, forgiveness, but pledges to continue to defend ourselves and her legacy lawfully. Amidst an outpouring of grief, a procession for the singer made its way through the streets of Manhattan on August 31, 2001, ending at the
Jesuit St. Ignatius Loyola Roman Catholic Church.
I was today years old when I found out.
The founder of the Jesuits was a man called Don Inigo Lopez, who was born into an extremely wealthy family in the Basque region of Spain in 1491. He later changed his name to Ignatius Loyola. As a young man, Loyola was said by police records to be proud, violent, vindictive, and dangerous. His great life's ambition was to become a powerful military commander, which was going well until one particular battle where a cannonball broke one of his legs and heavily wounded the other. This event effectively ended his military ambitions. He was removed from the field of battle, underwent numerous painful surgical operations, and spent a long time in recovery. During this period, Loyola had a nervous breakdown as he struggled to come to terms with the end of his army career and the end of his life's ambition. In this fragile mental state, as he lay there with little else to occupy his mind, he began reading a number of fanciful religious texts about the works of the Catholic saints. Particularly inspired by the life of St. Francis of Assisi, he set out to emulate his deeds and those of others like him. He began to envision Jesus as a type of great military commander, and thought that although his physical army career was over, he could instead become a kind of general in Jesus' army instead, the goal of which would be to capture the world. Now as a cripple, he made his way across Spain to the mountains of Montserrat, where there was a Benedictine monastery. Within this monastery was a sacred goddess idol called the Black Virgin of Montserrat, which he stood before in vigil for 3 days. There he committed himself and his work to her. By doing so, he committed himself to the demonic goddess Asherah. From here, he decided that he would go to Jerusalem and conquer the Muslim world for Catholicism. His ambitions were halted, however, as Barcelona had the plague, and he was forced to stay in the small town of Manresa for 10 months instead. For those 10 months, he lived in a cave, torturing himself physically and mentally, until he began to have dreams and visions. Through these hallucinations, he claimed that the secret doctrine of the Catholic Church was taught to him by a form in the air near him, and this form gave him much consolation because it was exceedingly beautiful. It somehow seemed to have the shape of a serpent and had many things that shone like eyes but were not eyes. He received much delight and consolation from gazing upon this object, but when the object vanished, he became disconsolate. After the 10-month period in the cave, Loyola proceeded to Jerusalem, where he approached the Franciscan monks. They told him to go home as they did not want any political trouble. It was upon his return to Spain that he started formal training by studying theology at various universities. At this time he, along with a small band of companions, also started making disciples of others.
The tragedy of Aaliyah is there are so many what-ifs that will forever remain unresolved. The upside is that At least professionally she managed to persevere in spite of the many people and institutions that failed her personally.
Let me introduce you to one of the big dogs from the inner sanctum of the music industry, and has a seat at the table where agendas are set.
Interestingly enough, he is the man set to benefit the most from this Drake versus Kendrick feud, as he funds both sides.
It's none other than Michael Goldstein. Michael was raised in a Jewish household in North London by his parents, Cecil and Jennifer Goldstein. Speculation has arisen regarding the true identity of his father, with some suggesting it could be the renowned Cecil G., originally named Sasha Goldstein, who was the founder of the well-known menswear brand, Cecil G. Cecil G. also had sons named Michael and Nigel. Make of that what you will, but as you'll see, Michael has gone to great lengths to obscure his identity in one way or another. Moving on, Michael departed Queen Elizabeth's Grammar School for Boys at 18 to join MPC, a talent scout company, in 1978. Following his brother's path, who established the record label, Ensign in 1976, Michael found himself in the music industry. Nigel eventually sold Ensign to Chrysalis Records in 1984, with its peak credibility marked by Sinead O'Connor's inclusion in the roster. Michael's career path continued as he became the director of RCA Music Publishing in 1982 and later an A&R director for MCA Records in 1984. Subsequently, he established Polygram Music Publishing in 1986 and assumed the role of general manager of A&R and business affairs at Polydor in 1993. His career culminated in his promotion to managing director of Polydor in 1997. For reasons, which haven't been made public, Michael assumed the surname Grange and adopted the first name of Lucian. Michael is now publicly known as Lucian Grange, a departure from his original identity as Michael Goldstein. Grange ascended to the position of chairman for the UK division of Universal Music Group, and later, in 2005, for Universal Music Group International. Shortly after assuming leadership at Universal, the company made a significant move by acquiring EMI's recorded music operations. Interestingly, EMI had previously acquired Chrysalis, which had purchased Ensign from Grange's brother Nigel in 1991. The acquisition of EMI's recorded music operations was surrounded by controversy, as the struggling label, boasting artists like the Beatles, Coldplay, and Katy Perry, was bought during a period of depressed valuations. Grange capitalized on the resulting increase in market share to negotiate advantageous deals with streaming platforms. Today, Universal artists dominate the charts, typically occupying 9 out of 10 top charting spots in any given week. Grange's influence in the industry has been widely recognized, with Billboard magazine naming him Executive of the Decade. Esteemed artists like Elton John and Taylor Swift have expressed their admiration and trust in Grange, with Swift emphasizing their mutual trust and respect. Among the hip-hop labels affiliated with UMG and Lucian are Lil Wayne's Young Money, Eminem's Shady Records, J. Cole's Dreamville, and Coach K&P's Quality Control Music. One of his most prominent hip-hop talents is Drake, who reportedly signed a staggering $400 million deal with UMG. Described by Lucian Grange as an expansive, multifaceted deal, during an earnings call, the agreement encompasses Drake's recordings, publishing, merchandise, and visual media projects. UMG, akin to Amazon's dominance in its market, serves as the parent company for a plethora of labels including Def Jam, Capitol Records, Interscope, Island Records, Cash Money, Republic Records, Polydor, and Love Records. Love Records, a label under the UMG umbrella, is overseen by Sean P. Diddy Combs and Ethiopia Habtemariam. Lucian Grange was mentioned in a lawsuit involving P. Diddy, alleging his attendance at several Love album listening parties where misconduct was purported to have occurred. Lucian's son, Elliot Cecil Grange, owns 10K Projects, established in 2016, boasting artists like Ice Spice, Lil Nas X, Trippie Redd, and Tekashi 6ix9ine. Numerous theories circulate regarding Lucian Grange, ranging from speculations about his parentage to his name change, and even to allegations of his supposed negative influence over hip-hop and youth culture. Whether embraced or resisted, Lucian undeniably plays a significant role in shaping the culture.
With all that said, and with all the power Lucian holds, he still answers to someone, and that someone is none other than Vincent Bolloré stands as the orchestrator of a sprawling business empire, his influence rippling through industries from advertising and media to African railways and ports. At the helm of global advertising giant Havas and with a commanding presence in media conglomerate Vivendi, Bolloré has forged strategic alliances with presidents and powerful figures across continents to bolster his ventures. Yet, his empire has not been without controversy, as his company aggressively combats journalistic scrutiny with lawsuits, particularly those probing corruption allegations. Bolloré's ascent in the business world began with his takeover of the family-controlled Bolloré Group, a conglomerate deeply entrenched in maritime freight, African trade, and paper manufacturing. Known as a formidable corporate raider in France, Bolloré made his mark by acquiring substantial stakes in French companies, notably the construction giant Bouygues. As the primary shareholder of Vivendi, Bolloré controls significant assets, including a notable stake in Universal Music Group and various TV stations and newspapers. In 2022, he expanded his influence by acquiring Europe 1, France's largest private radio station, just in time for the presidential election. Bolloré had long viewed the French media as overly left-wing and aimed to create a counterbalance, according to those close to him. A month-long strike at news channel iTélé allowed him to cut one-third of the newsroom, facilitating its rebranding as CNews, a news and opinion channel modeled after the U.S. right-wing outlet Fox News. The changes at Europe 1 radio station triggered a strike and a mass exodus of journalists. Vivendi brought in CNews personalities to replace several veteran hosts at the formerly mainstream station and mandated that CNews be broadcast on the station's airwaves on weekend mornings. The French Financial Crimes Unit is now investigating whether Havas, servicing luxury brands like Calvin Klein and Valentino, played a role in the elections of the presidents of Guinea and Togo by offering below-market rate advertising work, potentially paving the way for Bolloré Group to secure lucrative port contracts in these nations. In a surprising move, Bolloré appointed his son Yannick as chairman of Vivendi, with the younger Bolloré also leading Havas. This transition occurs amid allegations involving Nicolas Sarkozy, former French president and Bolloré's close friend, suspected of receiving illegal campaign financing from Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, a scheme Bolloré was once accused of facilitating but never charged. Among the controversies is Bolloré's connection to Alpha Condé, a Guinean politician and former Paris exile. Havas allegedly underbilled Condé's 2010 presidential campaign, leading to a transfer of control over Conakry's container port terminal to Bolloré Group. The deal, first reported by Le Monde, significantly bolstered Bolloré's assets in West Africa, where his company dominates transport logistics, employing over 25,000 people across a network spanning two-thirds of the continent. Vincent Bolloré has significantly influenced public discourse over the years through his media companies by reshaping their staff, style, and content to reflect his conservative views. He is the majority shareholder of Universal and is one of the men who has the music industry in the palm of his hand. Next we will look at the man who has written the most #1s in recent history, and you probably don't even know his name. It's none other than